The Met Cloisters was based on particular cloisters from France primarily, but it also involves gardens and also thematic galleries. You enter into the cloisters through the Romanesque gallery. All of the garments that we've selected for the exhibition relate directly to either the architecture or the functions of those particular spaces. From the Romanesque gallery, you enter the Saint-Guilhem cloister, in which we have two examples of Valentino's Rome-inspired collection, both secular and also sacred architecture of Rome, the Colosseum in particular. There's a cape that is appliqued with a series of black velvet and Romanesque arches, which reflect the Romanesque arches within the Saint-Guilhem cloister. And then you enter the Fuente chapel, where we're focusing on the 7 sacraments of the Catholic Church, particularly marriage, baptism, and communion. I think one of the most iconic pieces in that space is Balenciaga's one-seam wedding dress that was created in 1967. It's believed to have been made from one length of fabric with one seam. It's actually made from 2 lengths of fabric with 3 shaping seams. But it also relates to the garments worn by Jesus at the crucifixion, which were made from 1 length of fabric. So it's a nice connection to one of the main crucifixes in that space. From the chapel, you enter the Cloister, which is really, in terms of the layout, the heart and soul of the cloisters. And with this particular space, we're focusing on designers who have been inspired by the various monastic orders, Franciscan, Dominican, Cistercian. Some of the earlier examples are a series of dresses designed by Claire McCardle that was called the monastic dress, which is basically a dress that was tied at the waist. And Claire was very much inspired by Madame Grey and Vianney, and there'll be a few examples of garments that are in the Met's collection by Madame Grey from the late 60s and early 70s, and that were inspired really by the large sleeves of Cistercian choir robes. From the Cloister, you go into the early Gothic hall, which is focusing on designers who've been inspired by stained glass. Jean-Paul Gaultier created a dress that was inspired by Fouquet's famous painting of the Virgin and Child, which he fractured to look like a stained glass window. From the early Gothic hall, you go down the stairs into the Gothic chapel, in which we have garments that are primarily inspired by the British Gothic subculture of the 1980s and the particular tropes associated with that, obviously use of the colour black. And from there you enter the glass gallery. And in the glass gallery we are showing garments that relate to the plantings of the gardens of the cloisters. We're directly inspired by medieval plantings. We're focusing on designers who've used particular flowers, fruits that have a Christian symbolism, such as wheat, which is representative of the body of Christ within the Eucharist and a commemoration of the Last Supper. One dress is by Valentino that's beautifully embroidered with gold thread, silver thread and pheasant feathers, and to create this very stylized version of Cranach's painting of Adam and Eve. And then from the glass gallery you enter the treasury, and in the treasury are masterworks of medieval art, precious objects often used within the Mass, reliquaries, as well as chalices, but also garments such as chasubles. And within that space we've selected pieces that again relate directly to some of the artworks there. We have an example by Sean Lee of Alexander McQueen, a silver crown of thorns that was used in McQueen's Dante collection based on Dante's Inferno. And in the Boppard room, we have 3 hats that were created by Philip Tracy, based on Madonna headdress and the idea of the crowning of the Virgin, made out of straw that have been touched with gold gilt. One of the most frequented galleries in the Met Cloisters is the Unicorn Tapestries Gallery. And in that space, we have a dress by the American designer Tom Brown, with a unicorn embroidered into the dress, which is entirely made out of chiffon ribbons. And on the back, Tom's created 2 red ribbons that relate to the blood on the back of the unicorn in one of the tapestries. Then in the 9 Heroes tapestry room are some of the earliest tapestries in the Metropolitan Museum's collection from the early Middle Ages. And within that section we have used garments by Craig Green, inspired by a stole, but made out of Islamic prayer mats. So those particular garments relate to the idea of the Crusades. Some of the more complex pieces are on display in the Met Cloisters. So I hope that it's a journey people will make